I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Lancaster County Planning Commission of September 14th, 2016. A printed agenda is available outside the hearing room, and a copy of the full agenda, including staff reports, is available at the front of the chambers with the clerk. The Open Meetings Act is posted just inside the doors at the back of the room. If you parked in the parking garage across the street to the north, please be sure to pick up a parking coupon on your way out for free parking. They're right up here by David. Out of courtesy for those attending this meeting, the commissioners and staff, cellular phone usage is not permitted in these chambers during any portion of this meeting. We appreciate your cooperation. The Planning Commission action today is final on item 1.1, Special Permit 16041. Any aggrieved person may appeal final action of the Planning Commission to the City Council by filing a notice of appeal with the clerk within 14 days following the action of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission action on all the other items is a recommendation to the City Council or the County Board. The first item of business is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held August 31st, 2016. May I have a motion?
Move approval. Harris.
Second. Shear.
Jerry, please call the vote.
Cornell, yes.
Yes.
Core.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Lust.
Yes.
Sunderman.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Shear.
Yes.
Hove.
Yes.
Motion carried 8-0.
The next item of business is the consent agenda. Please note that only consent agenda item number 1.1, special permit number 16041, is being removed for a separate public hearing due to the submittal of a letter of opposition and will be read as item 3.1. Therefore, I will now ask Jerry to call any requests for deferral received prior to this meeting.
Okay, and I would just note that on item 1.1, special permit number 16041, we did receive a second letter of opposition around 12:30 this afternoon. So that, I believe the Planning Commission members have a copy of that, and I did email it as well.
Yep.
Okay, under deferrals, we've received written requests for deferrals from the applicants of agenda items 2.1 comprehensive plan 16005, which is to review as to conformance with the 2040 Lincoln Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan, a request to declare a city-owned parking lot as surplus property for the zoo expansion on property generally located at 2847 A Street. We've received a request for a 4-week deferral, which would defer the public hearing and action to the October 12th Planning Commission meeting. And we've also received a written request from the applicant on item 2.2, Comprehensive Plan Conformance number 16007, to review as to conformance with the 2040 Lincoln Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan, the acquisition of a permanent conservation easement by the Lower Platte South Natural Resources District of approximately 20 acres, more or less, on property generally located at Southwest 98th Street and Colebrook Road. And that request is for a 2-week deferral to the September 28th Planning Commission meeting.
I'd entertain a motion for
Move approval, Core. Did they hear me?
For deferral?
Yes, sorry.
Thank you.
Second. Weber.
Thank you. Jerry, please call the vote.
Cornelius.
Yes.
Core.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Lust.
Yes.
Sunderman.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Shear.
Yes.
Hove.
Yes.
Motion carried 8-0.
Is there anyone here wishing to testify on either of these two items, 16005 or 16007, rather than waiting until the deferred date? Doesn't appear to be. We'll now proceed to public hearings. The staff will make a brief presentation. The applicant will then be requested to present his or her testimony, followed by those who wish to testify in support, followed by those who wish to testify in opposition. The staff will then be given an opportunity to respond to testimony, and then the applicant shall have an opportunity for rebuttal. Each person testifying should state their name and address and shall have 5 minutes to speak unless additional time is requested and granted. The timer will go off after 4 minutes, then you'll have 1 minute to wrap up your testimony. The Planning Commission will vote immediately at the close of the public hearing unless the Commission votes to defer action or continue the public hearing. Jerry, please call the first public hearing item.
Okay, item 3.1, a special permit number 16041 for the sale of alcohol for consumption both on and off the premises on property generally located at 252 North 134th Street. And staff recommendation on this is for conditional approval. Again, this is final action by the Planning Commission unless appealed to the city clerk's office within 14 days of approval. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed?
I see none. Brian?
Good afternoon, Brian Will, Planning Department. Special permit for both on and off sale alcohol at this location. Where we're talking about is east of actually the city limit, but within the city's 3-mile zoning jurisdiction, which is why we're talking about this today. North 134th Street here, O Street, so we're just east of that. In particular, we're talking about this lot. You can probably picture the old, there's Parker Hannafin, actually before that Brunswick, the old plant there, northeast of the intersection. This is the location of the proposed special permit. We have a site plan from the applicant, so when we talk about the licensed premises, it would be these areas that are crosshatched, and so it's an area for a restaurant, there's an outdoor dining area, and there's a retail component for potentially off sale as well. I want to show you one more aerial, just put it in the larger context. So what I've done here, I've outlined in blue the area that is zoned I-1, which is sort of unique when you get outside the city limit to find large tracts like this with even commercial or especially industrial zoning. So everything within the dark blue is zoned I-1 industrial. And I note that adjacent to the east, commercial development here. I believe there's some retail in this building. This is mini storage located here, but also zoned I-1. So as the planning department evaluated this, based upon the criteria of the special permit, met all the requirements, including 100-foot separation to residential zoning, first floor residential, daycare, et cetera, and we are recommending approval of special permit. I would note that there are, as Jerry noted, 2 letters of opposition, one from Mike Geely, which is the owner-operator of the mini storage facility next door. The other is from Mike and Sandy, I'm going to get this wrong. Roach. Thank you. They're located to the southwest in the Crooked Creek development. Their house would approximately be where, approximately where the N from north would be. If I characterize both of them, I guess I would say that there is concern about the discharge of firearms on this property during daylight hours and the relationship of that with the sale of alcohol at this location. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, the first letter in opposition indicated that there is an outdoor shooting range on this property. Is that correct?
I cannot verify that. I do not know that there is an outdoor shooting range on this property. The applicant is here and could speak to that, but I have no knowledge of that. What I would add, we're talking about the discharge of firearms. This property, you are considering the special permit because it is outside the city limit, but inside the city's 3-mile jurisdiction for zoning and subdivision. So it comes under the city's authority in that respect. The liquor license, however, through the state, will not be considered by the Lincoln City Council. That has already been, I believe, considered by the county board. It is outside the city's zoning jurisdiction. Being outside the city limit, the discharge of firearms is allowed. That's allowed in the county. You get outside the city, it's a different set of rules and regulations that apply. What I would note that is that for this property in particular, I-1 zoning, if there were an outdoor shooting range, that would be considered an outdoor recreation facility, which would be a permitted use in the I-1 zoning district. So again, that wouldn't be an application that would come before the Planning Commission.
It would not?
It would not. It's a permitted use in the zoning district.
Even for profit?
Even for profit. Well, yes, it would have to be a commercial venture. Otherwise, it's just a property owner firing weapons on his range.
Does an outdoor shooting range have to have certain safety criteria?
Not to my knowledge, no. We had a special permit, I think, that came before the Planning Commission a couple of months ago, thereabouts. We did have assistance from State Game and Parks, I believe. Excuse me. I believe they have some personnel that are versed in range operation, and I think they probably try to follow as closely as they can guidelines by entities such as the National Rifle Association. Specifically, there's no regulation, however, or
Okay.
permitting.
I think both the report, though, and the second letter in opposition indicated future plans for an indoor shooting range. Is that correct?
Yes, that is, yes, I've heard the suggestion from the applicant. There's other possible commercial activities that may be located. This is a huge building. What he's proposing here is essentially the first one going in occupies only a portion of it, but that he has also additional business interests that may wind up locating here as well. Could be retail. I believe the owner owns a gun shop in town that may move here. And configuration of this building internally, the old manufacturing, long manufacturing facility would be conducive to an indoor shooting range. That's not there yet, though. Has not been approved by building permits or anything else.
And if an indoor shooting range were to go into this property, does that come before Planning Commission?
No.
It's also a permitted use.
Yes. You got to remember, there's I-1 zoning, industrial, which is the I-1 zoning, even of the industrial zoning designations, is one of the most permissive and intensive zoning districts in the zoning ordinance. The fact that it requires a special permit for on and off sale alcohol is probably more just a matter of consistency. When those regulations were developed and in place, it was applied to essentially all the commercial and industrial zoning districts.
So it's fair to say that in regards to this property, this is probably the only time it will be before this commission.
I think so, yes. I think that's, from what I know up to this point, I would say yes.
Others with questions? Thanks, Brian.
Okay.
Applicant?
My name is Derek Broman. I'm the property owner. I've only received one email, and that was from,
Derek, could you give us your address, please?
4931 Sinclair Court. I live in Lincoln. The only email that I've received was a copy of this one from Mike that was sent, I believe, from planning. And his fear is somebody consuming alcohol, discharging firearms unsupervised. And I can assure you that would not happen. And at this time, there's not a public shooting range on the property. And it's undetermined if we will eventually have a shooting range indoors, but if we do, that'll be very controlled, and, you know, those concerns will be addressed at that time. There are, lots of ranges nationally that have restaurants that serve alcohol built inside the range. So what we're doing here is nothing uncommon. I think this email that I've seen so far just addresses a completely different subject, of just people shooting on the property in general.
Has there been shooting on the property up to
Yeah,
this point?
there has, and it's outside the city limits, and the only thing it's subject to would be noise ordinance. And, during business hours, it falls within what's acceptable.
Is that for like a business that you're running, or it's just been your
No,
friends out there?
it's completely private. It's not open to the public, and there's no plans of doing a public outdoor range. So it's kind of irrelevant.
Can you maybe tell us a little more like what your plans are for this whole property and
For the
building
property?
all together?
Basically, it's going to be retail, and then if you can imagine kind of the situation of a shopping mall where you have different businesses inside there, and then also a restaurant to kind of complement that.
So when you say retail, like what do you anticipate selling?
In the beginning, it'll be sporting goods and firearms.
So maybe more than one store?
Yeah, and clothing too.
So you'll have different merchandisers coming in, like they'll have their own store, kind of like a gateway shopping mall type thing, or will it
Yeah,
all be?
you could compare it to that.
Other questions? Anything else you'd like to add, or anything else you?
No, and anybody is welcome to stop by there and contact me if they have any concerns, and I'd be more than happy to speak to anybody.
I think it was also stated that you have some storage going on there. Is this, do you have any, is it like public storage, just you're storing stuff?
Oh, it's not public storage, no.
Just you?
We have a lot of equipment. There's a lot of contractors there. They have a lot of tools, and, there's quite a bit going on right now. We're hoping to have the retail open by the end of the year is our goal. And then after that, we would probably work on the restaurant next year, depending on contractor schedules and,
You have a existing retail facility here in town,
I do.
and that's relocated there, or is
No,
it
it's not.
just,
Right now, this is just a building under construction for remodeling, renovations.
okay, and that won't be a sister store, or it'll be you'll be leasing this out, is that right?
Yes, it'll be leased to another entity, but I may own that entity also.
So in the future, do you think you'll move your store in town out there at some point?
More than likely, just for convenience and size and space.
And then do you have plans, I know you stated you didn't have plans for an outdoor shooting range, but maybe potentially for an indoor shooting range?
Yeah, and the cost on that is very expensive, so we would have to gauge the interest in membership. And if there was enough interest there, then that's something that we would look at pursuing. But at this time, there's not a definitive answer either way.
So would you own the whole property?
Yeah.
Correct. Would you plan on having even people out there shooting when your restaurant and retail establishment is open?
No, because there would be a patio, and, during those hours, there would be, people on the patio. It would be a sound nuisance.
Other questions? Thank you. Is there anyone here wishing to testify in support of this item? Is there anyone here wishing to testify in opposition to this item? Please come forward.
My name is Sandra Roach, 251 Pebble Beach. My husband and I did write that note that you have in front of us. I was hoping this letter was going to address what he was going to say, but I feel that he kind of skirted the issue about what is it that he really wants. Is he starting with on and off sale alcohol, and then is he moving to the restaurant? And what is his business in the city? That's another concern. We thought, am I allowed to use names of a business?
Sure.
We assumed someone called DeGun was moving into the facility. I don't know who he represents or what his business is. But it would seem to me then that that is a gun range. And I've done some reading on Florida, having just a year ago, moving with the restaurant and the shooting. And I guess my husband's and my main concern is how, if this happens, how are you going to regulate it? I don't know. I'm just feeling even more uncomfortable now with what he has to say because, again, he is addressing it as a alcohol place, and I don't know what his goals are. Main concern? I don't know. I don't know if I said enough or not enough, but I'm now even more concerned about his goals that he has.
And I'm not making any conclusions, I'm spinning a hypothetical. If this were simply a special permit to sell liquor for on and off premises consumption, what would your concerns be in that case?
Well, I'm not sure what you need to be doing selling alcohol on that corner. I don't much care because we have Crooked Creek, we have the golf course right there, and there's alcohol there. It's what he plans to do next. And I also read online, I believe I saw opened 6 o'clock in the morning till 1 o'clock at night was a goal. Is that the alcohol? Being sold from 6 o'clock in the morning till 1 o'clock at night? So, I wouldn't mind if it was there, but it's what's coming next.
Because that's what we're being asked to consider is the special permit. And the plans do bear on our decision, but what I want to do is get a gauge for your feeling on the terms of the permit kind of in a vacuum so that I can be clear on that and we can separate the question of alcohol on the one hand from firearms on the other hand.
No, I'm not opposed to him putting it in there if that's all he was ever going to do.
Understood.
How's
Thank
that?
you. Yeah, perfect.
All right, those are my only thoughts unless there are some other questions.
Any other questions from Ms. Roach? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here wishing to testify in opposition to this item? Please come forward.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Lingle. I'm at 925 Goodhue Boulevard here in Lincoln. My main concern also revolves around the permit as well as the firearms, which I know is a bit redundant, but my son, who is 3 years old, attends a daycare right on that blue line that he showed us on that map. There's licensed daycare there. On the immediate other side is his preschool that he also attends. The daycare is very close. You can see where the land is, you can see outside the back door where the children play. So you walk out to the play area, you look across a couple of little ponds, and that's the area that this building is in. There's already, and I understand he said this was all private shooting, but there has been a lot of gun noise and shooting on the property already, in which has prevented my child from being safely taken outside, so the daycare provider is choosing not to take them outside. And I'm here on behalf of myself and the daycare provider who I've spoken with. Our main concern, again, revolves around the potential of allowing alcohol as well as firearm use anywhere on the property, with licensed daycare and a preschool being in such close proximity. I'm not against gun use. I never have been. I've had guns in my home since I was very little. My father was a hunter. I learned gun safety when I was 7. One of the first things I learned was not to mix guns and alcohol, so that's it's very strong in my mind to be very careful, at least. And it's very concerning to me that, as it was brought up, that this is the only time this is ever going to be in front of the commission, regardless of what his future plans are regarding the gun ranges. Our biggest question is, what will the regulation be should he be granted this permit down the road if he allows shooting on the property, whether public shooting or private shooting?
can you just clarify
Yes.
for me where the daycare is at? Is that over in the, like the Eagle's Nest?
It was on the map that he showed, but I don't have a copy of the map.
Brian's going to bring it up for you.
Thank you very much. This is the daycare right there. And the play area where they play is right here. So you look out across here and can see all of this area and the building there.
Thank you.
And then the preschool that he goes to is further on. It's the next driveway, right on. You probably just missed seeing it on that map.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get your last name again?
Lengel, Lengel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here wishing to testify in opposition?
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Osterhout. I live at 1100 Plum Ridge Road, Lincoln, Nebraska. I oppose this. The reason for it is also because of the daycare. My daughter goes to daycare there. Also, she went to preschool. They can't go outside. You know, you see all this shooting and stuff going on. I have seen with my own eyes targets in the back of that building. I've seen it with my own eyes, them shooting over there. I'm a veteran, all right? I'm a United States Marine, and I know how far bullets go if they ricochet. It will hit the house. It will hit the daycare. It'll hit the school. I totally oppose this. And to bring alcohol onto this, I mean, that's common sense. You don't mix guns with alcohols. DE Guns is the name of the business. All right, they are down on O Street. I believe their intentions will be to move their whole gun store out there and also sell alcohol. On Saturday, the owner of the land and I were standing right on this corner. I took my 5-year-old daughter down there to look at the ponds.
Can you show us again? 'Cause we
sorry.
just brought it up.
It's going to be right here, which is on the landowner's property. Took my 5-year-old down there to see all the ducks on the pond. We had a shooter that was back there drive his truck over onto Mark Jacobson's property. He told us to get out of there, leave, because it's not safe for us to be there. Not safe. Now, if you throw alcohol on top of that, what would have happened? That's all I have.
Any questions? Thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify in opposition to this item?
My name is Mark Jacobson. I live at 14010 O Street. If you want to pull that map back up again there. My property borders the property in question. This is my property right in here. This is my house. My wife runs a daycare out of that house. It is approximately 400 yards from where they're shooting as a crow flies, from our backyard. So, you know, and I think, like I said, the liquor license, I'm contesting the liquor license mainly because the shooting is going on that close. I don't have a problem with firearms at all, but I do have a problem when myself and my family, anyone that sets foot on my property is unsafe. We all know how alcohol can impair people's judgments, cloud your thought processing. But as these other people mentioned, my wife Diana has an established in-home daycare business. She runs from home. She's been doing this for 10 years. We've been doing this about approximately 5 years on that property. Right now she's feeling like ever since this outdoor shooting range opened, she feels like it's jeopardizing her business. I know Mr. Broman kind of alluded to the fact that the outdoor shooting range isn't a big deal. Well, it's a huge deal to everyone surrounding this area. But yeah, she refuses to take kids out back when the shooting going on. The daycare parents are very concerned about it. She used to take nature walks down by our ponds. There are ponds down here, but she don't do that anymore. But like I said, she's afraid it's affecting her business. If my kids want to come over and go four-wheeling down that area, I've already, as you've heard, we've been told I'm unsafe in that area. I shouldn't be there. I mean, I don't feel that's acceptable that I should have to be unsafe on my own property. And I think, the mix of alcohol that goes with this, it's not acceptable. Mike alluded to the incidents about being told to leave. At that time, as Mike said, we were standing about right there by that spillway, and they were shooting over in this area, which I kind of mapped this out on the county assessor website. We're about 150 yards away from where they were shooting, and as I mentioned, my backyard is 400 yards away. So if they're admittingly telling me that I'm unsafe at 150 yards on my own property, am I safe at 400 yards? Am I safe at 800 yards? I don't know who can answer that. But as I said, by this man's own definition, I'm unsafe east of the shooters. Over here, on the other side of the road, there's Campbell's Nursery over there. What we were told was, as long as we're in the peripheral vision, we're unsafe. Well, here's Campbell's Nursery over here, approximately the same distance. They're about 400 yards away. There's a lot of workers over there. Full-blown business was over there. We've got all these residences over here. Crooked Creek Golf Course is over here. There's a storage. There's East O Street storage unit here. Stevens Creek storage is right there. As we mentioned, the daycare is over in this area. This property is surrounded by businesses. This is the shooting range is surrounded by heavily trafficked businesses and lots of residents in that area. I just feel like, in my opinion, just a matter of time until something horrible happens. And I feel like you folks can help eliminate at least part of that risk. I feel like we're already in a dangerous situation, and I think alcohol is going to make matters worse. And I know this meeting's not about shooting range, but considering all of these hazards we just spoke about, and I feel there's a lack of supervision on the shooting range. I've witnessed, it seems like there's a high level of shooting going on over there quite frequently. And if we can't be outside, I just don't think that's acceptable. Once again, I know this isn't about the shooting range, but I think the lack of supervision on the shooting range, the volume of people, the traffic surrounding this area. O Street, here's O Street that runs right here. How many thousands and thousands of people drive down O Street every day? Are they safe? Now, I know 99% of the shooters you're going to run across are very responsible, respectable people, but it only takes one person for a catastrophe to occur. And I guess I find it difficult to understand how you have to apply for a liquor license and have approval for that, but yet you can have a shooting range. It doesn't make any sense to me, especially without any approval or any regards to anyone around you. So, in closing, I'd like to just think about a couple things. Yes, the shooting range is outside the city limits, but this area is swarming with businesses and people. If you had a child that was going to a daycare next to a shooting range, or a grandchild where there was drinking going on, how comfortable would you feel? 400 yards away from a shooter. I think those answers are pretty obvious. And here again, I can't speak for everyone, but I believe if the outdoor shooting range wasn't there, I don't think the liquor license would be that big of an issue for most people. So, that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Michael.
Mr. Jacobson, to help clarify, is it correct to say that you don't feel safe today?
If they've told me I'm not safe in my own property, so no, I don't.
Okay.
I mean, if they're, by their own admittance, are telling me I'm not safe on my own property, I mean, how can I feel safe? I guess I didn't feel that unsafe until this guy told me that, but but if a shooter's going to tell me that, yeah, I don't feel comfortable at all, and I don't feel comfortable having my kids down there. I'd feel like it's, another concern is this is going to start devaluating our property if this is going to be a concern. I know I've talked to people that store campers at their storage units there. They're already looking for places to move their campers to. They're afraid they're going to get hit. It's not just me. I mean, as you can see, there's a lot of people concerned about this.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here wishing to testify in opposition to this item?
Hello, my name is Excuse me, my name is Mike Dager, and I live at 143rd Noe Street. My wife and I own the preschool that lady spoke of, and it's about east 800, 900 yards, half a mile plus. I may be not as critical of this because I think I understand what your charter is and what your mission is here to try to look at, and there are a lot of factors that influence this. I think it falls upon my neighbor, Mr. Broman, and I do business. I've bought weapons from his place, and so I genuinely want him to be successful. I'd like to go down and have a nice burger when that place is done, be convenient. But I think it falls upon him to create, or to give us a sense as neighbors that he's putting in some safeguards in place. We don't have, we've got about 25 to 40 preschoolers at our place. We're not keeping them indoors, nor are they out doing cowboy action shooting at our place either, or we wouldn't have very many preschoolers. But I guess my point is what he wants to do personally or privately, I understand that. And I could have a range at the back of my place. I live on 80 acres there, but we don't shoot. We don't shoot. My sons are always on me about that because how come we can't shoot, Dad? And I said, because I'm concerned about my neighbors. Having been in the military 30 years, I understand a surface danger area that is associated, and I'm betting Mr. Broman does too, for different calibers of weapons. And so I think what we're thinking here is that, is there a chance that alcohol and discharging firearms could collide? Could that happen tomorrow, somewhere down the road? Or can that be mitigated? Like the other gentleman said, like Mark said here, you know, if you're shooting in the right direction 99.9% of the time, if you're shooting into an area that's prepared for that, it's probably okay. But what about that one accidental discharge, which can go in 360 degrees? Heaven forbid that would be an accidental discharge that could have been avoided had somebody not been under an influence. So I'm really hoping that Mr. Broman can create a sense of safeguards. And that's why I'm speaking of concern, I guess, about this alcohol permit. I want his business to be successful. I've been living there since '94. That factory's been empty far too long. And so I genuinely do want that. But I am concerned about just that collision of alcohol and firearms and what that could mean. And so I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you.
Any questions for Mr. Dager?
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here wishing to testify in opposition to this item? Do we have questions for staff?
Yes, I do.
Right?
This might also be a question for the law department, but can we make a condition of approval that there be no outdoor shooting on the property?
I don't know. Generally, you have to have some sort of nexus between the use and the conditions. Typically, when we talk about, especially permits like this one, where they have so many criteria, so many conditions in order to even be able to apply and get the special permit, meeting all those, there's typically not something beyond that that's attached to it. I can't answer your question. Right now, we don't have legal counsel from the law department down here. I don't know the answer to that question.
I have a couple questions.
Tracy?
Can we get legal down here? Is anyone available?
I'd recommend you postpone it 2 weeks and continue further information.
Okay.
And I assume we can do anything as long as the applicant agrees, right?
I think so.
You can, without the applicant's approval.
We don't even need the applicant's approval.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to have it.
Steve Hendrickson from the Planning Department. The City Attorney's Office has always advised that if you are seeking additional information, which in this case I think is quite pertinent because it's information we can't provide, that you always have the right to continue something for 2 weeks, with or without the applicant's approval.
Okay, thank you.
Just for that, is the applicant okay with that? Applicant, are you okay?
I have another comment to make.
Maybe we should wait, because I have a couple
Wait a minute, you'll have a minute to talk.
I have a
so.
couple
Yeah,
questions.
we'll bring
for
you
the-
back up here in just a few minutes. Okay.
So you said that the liquor license has already been approved by the county, is that correct?
I believe that's the case. The county, no, not that it's been approved. Sorry, the process is liquor licenses come down to the local jurisdiction, either the city council or county board, for review and recommendation. Those bodies do not approve or deny them. That review and recommendation goes back to the state, who ultimately approves it. I believe that the county board has already reviewed and made a recommendation on it in the affirmative.
Okay. And then I just want to make sure, this sounds funny to me, but it's probably the way it is. So even if, you know, they're in the county, he's running a business out there, because it's in the county, they can shoot legally outside at any time.
Well, there's two things there. running a business, okay, there is zoning, okay. This is in the city's 3-mile extraterritorial jurisdiction, so the zoning ordinance of the city of Lincoln applies. Now, the use that we're talking about, outdoor range, outdoor something or another like that, would be an outdoor recreation facility in the I-1 district, would be a permitted use. The other part of it, discharge of firearms, hunting, discharging firearms is allowed in the county. So this property is outside the city's corporate limit. People are free to discharge weapons in the county. I mean, I suppose there are some laws that apply that the county sheriff would enforce relative to the discharge of firearms. I can't tell you what all those would be. You just can't go shooting willy-nilly, I suppose. But it's two issues there.
So if we didn't know today that there had been and might be shooting there, we would just be considering the alcohol permit.
I'm not sure I understand. You are just considering an alcohol
right,
permit.
But while we're having this discussion because something else is in play.
Right.
But if this application was approved, then late down the road he could still shoot there and nobody could do anything about it.
Correct.
Right?
This doesn't change that one way or the other. Correct.
And that's what I wanted to make, that's kind of trying what I was trying to get at is, you know, if he's running a business as an outdoor shooting range, does he need a permit for that?
Not from this body.
Okay.
Other questions, Brian? Maya?
So just trying to understand, since it wouldn't go to the city council, the kind of, if it were within the city limits, the kind of options to revoke if the owner would fail to keep the order and make sure that everybody's behaving themselves. What does this go to the county board for?
Well, no,
and can be revoked?
This special permit, this is under the city's zoning jurisdiction, and there are provisions for revoking these special permits.
And would the city council then do that?
Yes, it says the city council may consider any of the following as cause to revoke the special permit. Revocation or cancellation of liquor license, meaning the liquor license is withdrawn by the state, therefore special permit is not needed. Repeated violations related to the operation of the permittee's business. Repeated or continuing failure to take responsible steps to prevent unreasonable disturbances and antisocial behavior on the premises related to the operation of the permittee's business, included but not limited to violence on site, drunkenness, vandalism, solicitation, or litter.
And would that then include off sales to people who may or may not go and shoot?
It would relate
and
to
not be
on
safe.
and the sale of alcohol for consumption on or off the premises from this location.
So if this came up again and there was an unsafe mix of alcohol and guns, there would be a potential for the city council to revoke
Yes,
the
a
license.
show cause hearing could be requested before city council under these provisions for whatever potential complaint that there may be, if it is deemed to be a violation of one of those three provisions I wrote. So yes, now I'm not aware of one in my time here anywhere that the one has been revoked, but clearly these provisions were added because of the concern that once approved, just don't want it approved forever in perpetuity and not to be able to do anything about it should conditions somehow change. So,
And that would be driven by, by complaints by patrons or neighbors or?
Neighbors, exactly.
And would the sort of burden of proof then be on the person making the complaint, or is there kind of an inspection process that kicks in?
Well, I think it's going to be a combination of all of those things. I think there's going to be some burden of proof upon the person bringing the complaint. It may very well be that the city, through enforcement, through building and safety, is requested to do some investigation and zoning compliance. It's likely going to be a combination of all those things. It's going to need to be something, I would think, fairly thorough and substantiated to go through the process of revoking a previously approved permit.
Any other questions from Brian?
I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but I see that we have some law enforcement in the audience, and I'm not sure if they're here on this issue or another issue.
They're just here. They're not here for an issue.
Okay.
And
There are security.
I think they're here for all of our.
I just was wondering of their input on if they had, calls or anything out there.
If I may, David Carey with the Planning Department, I think where some of this questioning is going, and as Steve alluded to earlier, I think requesting this to be delayed for 2 weeks is probably the most appropriate action in order to get specific questions answered from knowledgeable folks, mainly from the law department, to ask those legal questions of what can and can't be added into an approval like this. So I think
David, we have a weird situation here where we've got both city ordinance in play and county law in play. Do we need both city and county attorney?
Yes, I think what we want to make sure is that we're asking all the right questions to the right folks.
Agreed.
And make sure that the decision that's made is informed and accurate.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. Anything else for Brian? Great. Applicant, rebuttal?
I think right now the biggest thing to consider is this building is pretty much a building that's just under construction. There's no occupancy. It's in a different situation than it would be in if there were a restaurant with outdoor dining. I mean, clearly there would not be shooting going on in that situation, which is interesting that they don't want that, from the people that I've heard spoke today, that they don't want that to happen, but it sounds like their main problem is the shooting on the property, in which this would kind of solve itself,
So you wouldn't object to a condition of the special permit being there be no discharge of firearms on the property outside?
Well,
if it's going to solve itself.
Either way, if I did move my retail business there and we did some kind of gunsmithing, shooting a firearm outside, from 1 foot to a piece of dirt to test it is different than a shooting range. So for that reason, I wouldn't say that I would agree to that, but it would definitely change the situation that it's currently in, because as I said before, right now this is a building that does not have occupancy. It's just land there, and it's private people shooting on private property. It's all it is. And if you look at the map that was just up here, it's no different than the hunting blind that I've seen on the neighbor's property that was just up here testifying. So, I'm assuming with a hunting blind that there's probably hunting going on right next door.
What I heard from the neighbors was not necessarily that they object to the shooting. They understand that there will be shooting because of the situation of the property in the county. that's a possibility. But they're concerned about the intermix of alcohol and shooting outside.
Oh, yeah, and I am too, and that's the first thing that I addressed is the one email that was forwarded to me in the beginning of the meeting, if you review it, you know.
Well, I think the other issue is the safety of those in other living close by or on their own property and the discharge of guns in that vicinity or towards that vicinity.
I've never told anybody that they're not safe on their own property. I'm not sure where that came from.
Do you allow people to go on your property and shoot at any time?
Not at any time, but there are a handful of people that do.
So I'm a little confused. Is there or is there not going to be at some point outdoor range for firing weapons? Because I don't have a real big issue with an indoor range. Nobody's going to get hurt with that.
Not that would be open to the public or anybody that would, you know, it would be no different if somebody went to a restaurant that served alcohol and then went outside and fired a firearm. That seems like the same scenario that we're addressing, and in any case, I'm sure law enforcement would get involved at that point.
But in my opinion, in my eyes, it's different if a customer is going out there on a range because I'm a landowner, I go out and shoot on my land too, which, you know, we practice that safely, and I assume you would too. So I don't have a problem with you doing it, you know, personally, but I do have concerns of a commercial range with neighbors in proximity. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Isaac Walton has both rifle shotgun and alcohol on premises, and at least they used to.
I believe they do, and I'm not sure if the gun club still does, but, you know, one that stands out in my mind that everybody kind of looks towards is the Dallas Gun Club, and it's kind of a country club atmosphere, and they have alcohol and a chef, and all the members that go there would do their shooting, and then they may eat dinner, or they may or may not even have alcohol. And it's, you know, the easiest way to look at this entire situation is it would be more like a shopping mall. The only difference is it's outside the city limits, but it's inside the 3-mile radius. So in order to get the permit, this special use permit's needed.
Any other questions? I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'd entertain a motion.
I move we continue this for 2 weeks to get more information.
Second.
Do we have to be specific on information that we need, or just generally?
We've got a motion and a second, so we can talk about what information we need. Sure.
Okay.
And I'm sure we can pass that on via email if there's a specific question.
Right, but I think what the particular question that came up was the question of whether or not, as a condition of the special permit, we can restrict the use of firearms outdoors on the property.
And we need both a legal from a city and county.
We'd like to have both city and county present, at least.
Do we want to get law enforcement opinion on this?
I'd defer to someone else on that question. I don't particularly feel that need.
You would ask that question? Okay. Anything else? Jerry, would you call the vote, please?
Sure. This is to continue the public hearing in 2 weeks on the 28th of September. So it would be continued public hearing. Okay. Cornelius?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Lust?
Yes.
Sunderman?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Hove?
Yes.
Motion carried, 8-0. Okay, the next items under public hearing are items 4.1, which is comprehensive plan number 16006 to amend the University Place redevelopment plan as to conformance with the 2040 Lincoln Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan. The redevelopment plan area is approximately 10.56 acres more or less on property generally located between Huntington and Layton Avenues, North 44th Street and 48th Streets. Staff recommendation is conformance with the comprehensive plan, and the associated item is item 4.1B, change of zone number 16024 for mixed-use redevelopment project at an existing shopping center with a development plan that proposes to modify standards of the underlying zoning district subdivision ordinance and design standards on property generally located at North 48th and Layton Avenue. Staff recommendation is for conditional approval. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on these applications?
I see none. David?
David Landis, Urban Development Department Director, applicant in this case, asking this body whether or not this project is an appropriate amendment for the redevelopment plan that exists out on North 48th, and is it consistent with the comprehensive plan? We believe it is. Your planning staff opines to that effect in 8 different locations. Your Urban Design Committee, which saw this yesterday, had a unanimous approval of the response. And this is one of 2 buildings that are projected by the developer in this case at the 48th and Layton location. Total amount of residential, 184 market rate residential units, not student housing. 28,000 first floor square feet of either commercial or retail space. Retail is best from a walkability perspective, but if it's office space, that works as well. There would be a new skin face on the one of the existing buildings that is a strip along one side of the existing development. This is an area now that has a rather good deal of the space involved. It's unoccupied, and that means that it starts to fall apart. We've got some broken windows and something at the foundation. If you were to look into the landscaping, you'd see that it's broken up concrete. You could see electrical boxes that were not in use. You could see operations like this where tech pointing is necessary because the bricks are cracked, and this is in the parking lot area. It's an older and tired area, generally speaking, because the heyday of that particular location is years in the rear view mirror. Unfortunate for the neighborhood that it lost the Hy-Vee grocery store, but that's not going to come back. The question is, what will take its place? And the question is whether or not this is appropriate to the comprehensive plan and to the location. Remember that the comprehensive plan specifically locates this identity, this place, to say this is the kind of area valuable for a mixed-use redevelopment project. There are only a couple of them that are identified in the comprehensive plan, and this is one of them. So it reaches out in a particular way, I think, for the kind of development that we're talking about. One of the things that's been very positive, not only because the design has been so warmly regarded by the Urban Design Committee, but is the reaction of the neighborhood. This developer has reached out without the obligation of the compulsion of the planning department or ourselves saying go and meet the neighbors. They've done it on their own on more than one occasion. The most recent one was held last week with over 50 people attending, and the developer met with individual stakeholders in the area, and the reaction has been uniformly positive to what we know about. There are sometimes outliers of 1 or 2, but we haven't seen them so far. The neighborhood is excited, I think, about this. The project is 184 market rate residential units in a 5-story building and a 4-story building, as well as the refurbishment of the strip mall, 28,000 feet of first floor commercial. And I would also just want to indicate that this is a location that the developer identifies the need for green space and walkability. If you were to go there now, it is a parking lagoon. And it has, you can imagine what a 90-degree day would be in trying to cross that concrete driveway to get, or parking lot to get to the store. This is the kind of thing that makes it more neighborly, more walkable, more pedestrian-oriented, and a better mixed use. We endorse the project and hope that you will find it in conformance with the comprehensive plan. Other questions?
Yes, I had one. On the map that we got that shows us where the project boundaries are, there's a little square in the middle. What is that?
Yeah, that's that thing right there.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. What is that and why is that
Oh,
not
okay.
part of the plan?
This might be it.
Yeah.
This exists now. It's a bank building on that corner, and it's not part of the project. The project land that the developer has secured is this area, and you would think of the Hy-Vee store and the Goodwill, thank you. Okay, this is the area that was identified in the little blank space. It's not part of the project area. These are the two new buildings. The existing building is here. This is part demolition, but part of the building is kept. Phase 2 would be here, and this is an existing building that will be reclad. This is the kind of change that we foresee in what is now just a pretty open area. A small airplane could probably land on that much concrete, I think. That's what the space is.
That hasn't been X'd out because the bank doesn't have any particular objection to the plan.
Not that
as
I
far
know
as you
of, no. I haven't dealt with the bank, however, and the developer has reached out to individual stakeholders. It'd be fair to ask them that same question.
Mr. Landis, if you were a betting man, what would you say were the odds of there being some sort of grocery in the first floor commercial retail area?
It will be heartbreaking for all of us, but there is a land use restriction, a non-compete clause that is the remains, the skeletal remains of what was once a large grocery store there, and it binds the use of the land.
For how long? In perpetuity? Or
Not
I mean,
in
that's been there
perpetuity.
for a
No,
long
and in fact,
time.
any non-compete clause cannot be in perpetuity.
Right.
It is governed by its reasonableness in the commercial marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
And if it oversteps that mark, it is subject to being attacked. But if it's not, it's regarded as legitimate. I'll ask the developer to identify what those limitations are. There are other locations in the North 48th area. We own some land a little further north. We'd love to have become a grocery store. And by the way, if somebody's watching on TV, make us an offer and build a grocery store. We'll be reasonable, but not at this location.
Other questions for Mr. Landis?
Are we going to have a separate staff report for the other part that's
For the PUD,
associated?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
There's two separate pieces, and in fact, the developer will make their case as the applicant for the PUD, but we're here because of the fact that this ultimately will be between $30 and $35 million of investment, and we anticipate about a $4 million TIF project growing out of it, which is why we're here.
Thank you. Is there anyone here wishing to testify in support of this item?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, my name is Tom Houston. My address is 233 South 13th Street, Suite 1900, here in Lincoln, appearing before you today on behalf of City Ventures. With me to help answer questions that you may have is Chris Erickson, principal of City Ventures, also the project architect, John Badami, and Daniel Sidoff from DLR are present if you have any design questions. The two items on your agenda today are the amendment to the redevelopment plan. The University Place redevelopment plan was adopted approximately 18 years ago. This site has been included in that redevelopment area since that time. The area has been in existence for that long, and here we are 17 or 18 years later with the project moving forward. The second item on your agenda is the change of zone from the existing combination of a residential and commercial zone into the B3 planned unit development, which is really required for the mixed-use project. I think the scope of review of the Planning Commission as it relates to the amendment to the redevelopment plan is pretty simple under the community development law, just whether or not this redevelopment plan is consistent with the comprehensive plan. And the amendment to the redevelopment plan does identify the project, describe the project. I thought I would explain it a little bit to you. As indicated by Director Landis, phase one of the project really is focusing on the two buildings located in the center of this property, identified in red. Building One to the south is oriented with a central amenity area, pool area, oriented towards Layton Street. And building number 2 on the north side also provides an opportunity for parking on the northwest corner of the property. The structures themselves will contain 184 dwelling units, primarily focused on 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms with some efficiencies mixed in there. The first floor of the buildings will contain retail areas, approximately 28,000 square feet of retail opportunities. The center area in between the 2 buildings is an interesting design element of this project, really designed to function as a main street. It's a private driveway, really, functionally, legally, but it really will provide the opportunity for festival space, farmer market opportunities, and common space for the residents and neighbors. The site is in the floodplain. It will be brought up out of the floodplain as a part of the project, and I would identify the reasoning of the staff report found in paragraph 6 of the staff report really focuses on why this project is in conformity with the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan does focus on mixed use development, and the PUD is our mechanism for doing that in the city of Lincoln. It focuses on developing underdeveloped sites, and this certainly is an undeveloped site. I'm not aware of any really 4+ lane arterial street like Layton Street that has less activity on it than we have at this location. Layton Street is a large arterial and certainly can accommodate a lot of growth in the area. And the comprehensive plan really does try to encourage mixed-use development with residential and commercial mix. So the phase 1 of the project is in the central area. The redevelopment plan does describe phase 2. It is not really anticipated exactly what that will bring, but it's anticipated, I suppose, to be similar to the phase 1 of this project. The second component on your agenda really is the planned unit development itself. And a couple things that I did want to point out to you. Paragraph 4 of the staff report talks about the comprehensive plan goals as it relates to mixed-use development. The first item, the first goal, is to orient the buildings towards the street. What you have on the overhead, if I can zoom back a little bit, that's an orientation from the east of the site. It does show that the building number 1 is located along the property line on Layton Street, in that the buildings are oriented towards the street. It will provide a vertical mix of the residential use on the upper floors and the retail on the first floor. And the third item is really establishing a street network. One of the things I neglected to point out before is this project will provide a neighborhood connection from the north, really reconnecting 46th Street to the north down to Layton. This will be a private drive, but it's really the functionally equivalent of a private street that will provide connection from the neighborhood down to Layton Street and throughout the project. Combine that with the main street of the area, I believe the project does satisfy that requirement of the comprehensive plan. The last thing I wanted to mention is that I did hand out a motion to amend. The one I guess, contingency we're trying to plan for, there's an opportunity for this project to include an office user. The office user isn't going to be able to make up their mind collectively probably towards the end of the year, and we'd like to have the planned unit development modified to accommodate that potentiality. And so the motion to amend would permit the north building to be 5 stories rather than 4 stories, so that we can add a 30,000 square foot office space, which is obviously one of the goals of the comprehensive plan, to include more mixed uses and more jobs within the area in the event that that office user does decide to locate at this site. So I believe the planning staff agrees with the language that you should have in front of you on the motion to amend that would amend site-specific condition 2.2 with the requirement that we demonstrate that from a shadow study perspective, it would not have an adverse impact on the neighboring properties to the north. If you have any questions of me, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Question from Mr. Houston. Maya?
Just one. Where would the residential on the first floor be?
The only location that was currently envisioned is really the first floor on the north building, and those first floor residential units are really designed more or less like row homes with exterior stoops and exterior entrances for each unit. But as I mentioned, that is the potential that those units could be replaced with the office user if that office user decides to locate at this site. So that's the only waiver that we're requesting, though.
Just a follow-up to that, is there any establishment with the alcohol license or permit that would become non-conforming if residential went in on the first floor?
I do not believe so.
In the neighborhood?
No, it wouldn't have any adverse impact on that.
Other questions?
And my only question is, the office is contemplated to be on the ground floor or the top floor?
It may be, well, it's probably the first 2 floors. I think they're looking at 2 plates for an office user, probably a combined 15,000 square foot plate per story. And that's why we would like to maintain the density of housing, because that's one of the goals of this site and the comprehensive plan, and that's why we would seek permission to add the 5th story to the north building, provided it doesn't have an adverse impact on the neighboring properties to the north.
But I think this is assumed, but then the 5th story would become housing.
Correct.
That wouldn't be office use.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. The office user would be 1st floor and 2nd floor on that north side of that north building.
Any other questions?
So on the north, on that kind of leg where you said it's going to be residential, does that residential go all the way, like from east to west, that 1st floor, if it doesn't become office use, or is it office on one side and?
The residential just would be in that north wing of, Chris Erickson could probably better explain it than I
Chris
can do.
Erickson, City Ventures, 905 Jones Street, Omaha, Nebraska. Thanks for the opportunity today. The residential is really truly walkout 2-story units, so it's lofted bedrooms above, common living space. This is a product that we've built a couple times in Omaha already to very glowing reviews. It's a product that really engages the residential community with the neighborhood, and it's something that does have a very residential feel, and we feel like is a nice transition from residential into commercial, and has worked very successfully for us.
But what I'm wanting to know is that
Yep.
entire, so like that's their front door and their back door of the same unit?
Nope, that's not accurate. The front door, so the units would start about mid-block, continue all the way along this face. These are different units that also enter, that are off the parking lot. We've got a sidewalk we've constructed on the back, so they're back-to-back units.
And so if residential does go in there, is this going to be the type of unit where they have the garage and they park in the garage, can access their unit, or?
No, the units are really efficient, so they're very much like row homes. They do not have garages in the back, so the parking is similar to the rest of the apartment community.
That's the secured parking area in that northwest corner.
So are there garages anywhere on the plan for this?
We don't currently have any proposed, no.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here wishing to testify in support of this item? Is there anyone here wishing to testify in opposition to this item? Do we have questions for staff?
Maybe just, if we could get confirmation if planning is okay with the amendment?
So, okay, I thought that, are we just doing the comp plan part right now, and then we're going to have a separate presentation on the change of zone?
Andrew Theroff, Planning Department. No, this is for both items. So, yeah, if you have any other PUD-specific questions.
Yeah, I got a lot.
That would be the time as well.
Okay. Do you approve the motion to amend?
Yeah, we looked at it right before the meeting, and yeah, we're okay with it. So.
Okay.
What was the outcome of the Urban Design Committee meeting that happened yesterday?
It was unanimous approval from Urban Design, which is pretty rare that come back with glowing comments from Urban Design on first run. So, very pleased. Well received.
And how about, I guess you kind of talked about the neighborhood meeting. Have you talked to, I looked at the properties just to the north of this, and I noticed that out of those 5 to 6 properties, only one seems to be owner occupied. Have those property owners expressed any concerns, their views, their sunshine, anything like that?
Well, I can say from the city side, we sent out letters to them, and we haven't heard any feedback on our end. Maybe I don't know if Chris has anything to add.
We also independently sent out letters to everybody within 300 feet of the surrounding property, invited them to a public meeting that we hosted last week. And then we've also been networking this through the neighborhood over the last probably year, trying to really understand what the goals of the community were and see how that blended with what we felt like the opportunities were. Even really before we came up with the vision, I guess, that's in front of you today. So we put a lot of time and energy into that. I did not go knock on every door and seek them out to that level, but we certainly invited them all. And we did have over 50 people attend, so it's possible that they were there. I don't really know. Most of those buildings are rental properties, though. So,
of that other building that's going to remain and just maybe a facade improvement, how much of that is currently occupied right now?
It is about a 14,000 square foot building, and we have 5,000 square feet vacant. It's something that we've really held off on putting a tenant in intentionally because we feel like it's going to be really the first opportunity to start changing the momentum of the leasing in this neighborhood. We've had a lot of tenants come to us that I would call, neighborhood retail that just didn't really fit with what our future vision for the community was, which is a little bit more, I would say, restaurant entertainment type focus. We feel like the real void in the neighborhood is a place for people to go and really come together, be entertained, and I guess really celebrate the community. So we're trying to create that, and I didn't want to compromise that by leasing it to someone who didn't fit that vision. And before we presented the vision, I didn't feel like it was able to be.
So I'm assuming that building there is in pretty good shape, or
physically it's in good shape. The facade is going to need a little TLC over time. I think some of it might be able to be done short term. I don't think we'll really address that until we start getting some more movement in the tenancy of that building. So I don't think it's something that'll happen like immediately with this project, but it's something that will time out, and it's definitely a goal of ours.
Anyone else?
I have some questions about the water issues.
Sure.
Or the water stuff. Ben, do you want to just come up?
Floodplain related?
No.
Okay.
Well, so can you explain to me, they talk about.
Jerry, Ken has to leave.
Let me see.
Ken has to leave.
Can't remember exactly. Oh, the roof drains and the area inlet filters. I mean, can you explain to me how, what's going on there?
It's a water quality solution that we've implemented in other urban developments that we've done when, so urban format development really uses land efficiently, and we've focused on doing that here as well. And then we're also being bound somewhat by the unpredictability of what the rent structure is going to be over in these neighborhoods, which has we've tried hard to design a project that has avoided structured parking to bear those additional costs. And so with that, we've tried to use the land efficiently and tried to treat the water at the point of it falling, which is what the systems that you're asking about do, rather than trying to direct them to a central location that takes up a lot of land area and treats it in those locations. So it's a lot more maintenance, but they're still pretty cost-effective solutions in the long run, and they're pretty easy to maintain. It's a system where you can walk up on the roof, you can just trade out the filter.
So basically, you are filtering the water up on the roof before it comes down?
That's accurate, yep.
Okay.
There are some other systems that are in line as well that work pretty well too, so like partway down the building, but.
I did have questions Maya asked about the alcohol permit. So I guess I'm just wondering if a new business selling alcohol, wants to go in there, in the new, the first floor of the building, they'll still have to apply for a permit to be approved and all of that stuff.
This would actually be approving that. They just have to meet the conditions of that special permit. So they wouldn't have to go through the process again, but they'd still have to meet all of the conditions associated with it.
And get a liquor license.
Yeah.
True. Now, there was also a note about the sidewalk on the south side of Huntington, and I had a little questions about that. I noticed kind of in the history that for some reason it looked like it had gone back and been rezoned to R6. Is that just because it's parking lot?
Well,
didn't
there was a
understand-
larger chunk that was rezoned R6, and then that parking lot chunk was basically just part of it when they squared it off.
Is that just because we were trying to meet, like some setbacks over on Huntington, or I didn't understand why that needed to be R6 and couldn't be just B3 with the rest of it?
Previously, why it was R6? Yeah, I'm not sure exactly why it went from, I think it went from B3 to R6 previously. It went from a B district to an R district. Unfortunately, when we get back a certain amount of time, we don't have great information about some of those old changes of zone. But just from what it looked like, they were changing some of the kind of surrounding properties, and just basically to square it off, this parking lot was included as part of that R6.
So I'm assuming where that sidewalk is missing is that section right there where it was R6 instead of B3.
Yeah, back in, there was a special permit several decades ago for the parking lot, and somehow, yeah, something happened where the sidewalk just never got put in, and that's been that parking lot for a long time. So there's never been any mechanism to add the sidewalk till now.
Okay, I'm just making sure I didn't miss any questions here. The only thing I really wanted to know, and I assume you haven't heard anything, but you haven't heard anything from the University Place organization about whether they support this. Yeah, I think someone might have missed their point to testify because they were thinking the same thing that I was. Can we get him, can we have him come up?
Oh, have we?
Yeah.
Is that okay with the applicant?
Perfectly
and
fine with
the-
me, yeah, perfectly
Okay.
fine with me.
Great.
Thank you very much. You're exactly right. I did the same thing you did. I thought it was going to be split, testimony on A and B separately, so I missed the opportunity. So thank you very much.
You give your name and address, please.
I will.
Thank you.
My name is Mike DeKalb. I live at 6015 Huntington Avenue. Some of you may know I'm a retired city county planner for 36 years, and I retired 5 years ago. I am the past president and the current board member of University Place Neighborhood Organization. I'm also a NRD director for this district, District 3. Speaking specifically to your piece, we did have a neighborhood meeting last night. The board chose not to take any specific issues on this, but I do have some prepared testimony to fill in a few gaps. I'll keep it very short for you. And I'm speaking for myself in this particular circumstance. I've been a resident of the neighborhood for 40 years. I want to note that I fully support the application for multi-use redevelopment of the old University Place Shopping Center located at North 48th and Layton Avenue, the former home of Hy-Vee, the former home of Hy-Vee Main Street, the former home of Safeway and Treasure City, and back in the 60s, International Superstores, for those of you who remember that far back. I was just a kid. I want to compliment Mr. Chris Erickson for his ongoing conversation with the neighborhood in the past 2 years. When he bought the place, he kind of got, 2 months later, Hy-Vee announced their closure. He got chopped off at the knees. He came to our annual meeting in the last 2 years. He's come to several neighborhood meetings. He's invited us for coffee, members of the board and president of the board, myself, to talk over his projects, what the mix was going to be, who he was marketing to, and so on. Has been very positive in that sense. Last week, during our farmers market, located right on the southerly building pad, he held an open house for 2 hours, and I went to the first one, and other members of the board went to the second one. It was all very positive. I would guess he had 40, 45 people come and ask a variety of questions, including most of our board and our council member and our past mayor. So he's been very, very good at that. So my compliments. I want to note that in our area there are many things underway in University Place. This just being one. It's about time, I guess. We've got the redevelopment of the QP-TSD Inn site. Nebraska Westian's construction of a new physics building that you just approved 6 months or so ago. Improvements of Dead Man's Run to remove floodplain, which will actually take this area out of the floodplain and probably 2/3 of University Place neighborhood out of the floodplain in a couple of years. And of course, the improvements to 33rd Adams and Cornhusker, that'll be the RTSD project. Just as a side note, I would like to note that, there's a long-term issue, I think, for the city to address food deserts. I consider this being a food desert. As was noted earlier in the testimony, we've got lease restrictions and continuing agreements between the developer and Hy-Vee to be able to move the project forward. And so I think there's a need to address food deserts in the comp plan and otherwise, and a need to address no compete lease agreements in the future. And with that, I say a belated happy birthday to Dave Carey, and thank you for letting me come up, and be happy to answer any questions.
What about food deserts made Dave Carey pop into your head?
Pardon? His ears pop up?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for staff?
I found one. The bank that's on the corner there, do they meet their own, do they have enough parking on their own without including this portion of the development?
They have a few spots on site. My guess is that they have a cross-parking agreement with.
Yeah, the answer is I think probably no, but they do have a cross-parking agreement. And it worked out pretty well in this instance because there's a large, there's a large, large underground drainage structure that actually cuts through this parking lot. If this site didn't have that, we would have pulled this project much closer to 48th Street. But because of it, it really complicates that issue. And but we do work closely with Wells Fargo, so they're a partner of ours. They're actually a tenant of ours. The ATM that they have there is a leased space, and a great working relationship with them on this property and other properties that we own. So
great.
They've been a great partner.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for
I'm
staff? Done. Okay. Thank you. Applicant rebuttal, anything else anyone would like to say? Okay. Call them separately.
Excuse me. Item 4.1A is Comprehensive Plan Conformance Number 16006 to amend the University Place redevelopment plan as to conformance with the 2040 Lincoln Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan. The redevelopment plan area is approximately 10.56 acres, more or less, on property generally located between Huntington and Layton Avenues, North 44th and 48th Street. Staff recommendations for conformance with the comprehensive plan.
Entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Sunderman. Sunderman. Discussion?
I think this, I'm just going to speak for the comp plan portion, but right now, but I think that this clearly meets the comp plan, and so I'm in approval.
Thanks, Tracy. Anyone else? I'm in agreement with Tracy. I'm going to vote for this. I think it is an excellent project and clearly meets the conditions. Jerry, please call the vote.
Cornelius?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Lust?
Yes.
Sunderman?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Hove?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Okay, the next item is item 4.1B, change of zone number 16024 for a mixed-use redevelopment project at an existing shopping center with a redevelopment plan that proposes to modify standards of the underlying zoning district, subdivision ordinance, and design standards on property generally located at North 48th Street and Layton Avenue. Staff recommendation is for conditional approval.
Entertain a motion.
Move approval?
With the amendment?
With the amendment?
As offered by the applicant?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Dennis.
Second, Lust.
Discussion on that?
I think this is an exciting project. This is kind of it is a very underutilized portion of our city, and kind of like Mr. Landis stated, it's like a parking yeah,
club.
yeah, it's a nightmare when you're trying to drive through there, and if you're walking, watch out for people driving because they might hit you. So I'm excited to see kind of the reintroduction of streets in there and some landscaping, and I always like to see more green space instead of concrete, so that's exciting for me too, and I think this will be a great project.
Michael?
I agree with everything you said, Tracy. And I also think that this is an interesting concept, and I'm excited to see something that's not student housing, which we've seen an awful lot of. And every now and then I think, gosh, I wish we saw something that wasn't, and it's nice to see something that isn't.
Anyone else? I just echo what everybody said. Jerry, please call the vote.
Okay, this is for conditional approval as amended by the applicant. Cornelius?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Luss?
Yes.
Sunderman?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Hope?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
At this time, anyone wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda may do so. We're adjourned. Thank you.